"We have a problem," the pilot interrupted. "The Defiance is signaling. They are under attack and moving to defensive posture. Our approach vector is now in a potential crossfire zone." Sophia's expression remained calm, but I could see the rapid calculations behind her eyes. "Option limited," Rivera admitted. "We can try to circle wide and approach from the far side, but that adds 40 minutes to our timeline and burns fuel we can't spare. Or we can proceed on current course and hope the Defiance can clear a path." Neither option seemed particularly promising. If the Zerthan vessels had somehow anticipated our rendezvous, they would have deployed assets to cover all approach vectors. "There's a third option," I said. "An idea forming. Let me open a channel to the lead Zerthan vessel." Sophia looked at me sharply. "What are you planning?" "A test," I replied, "of whether our broadcast had any effect." After a moment's consideration, she nodded to Rivera, who instructed the communications officer to establish the connection. Seconds later, a display activated, showing the bridge of a Zothan cruiser. In the command position stood a figure I recognized immediately. Fleet Commander Vraxon, a former colleague from my days at the War College. "Commander Vraxon," he greeted me, his voice carrying the formal tones of official communication. "You have violated numerous laws of the Collective and stand accused of treason against our people." "I stand accused of telling the truth," I corrected him. "A truth you and your crew have now seen for yourselves. The evidence is irrefutable, Vraxon. You know what the High Command has done." Vraxon's mandibles twitched, a subtle sign of internal conflict that most humans would miss. But Sophia, I noticed, did not. She watched the exchange with intense focus, no doubt cataloging every nuance of Zothan non-verbal communication. "The situation is complicated," Vraxon finally said. "Your broadcast has created significant disruption." "Not my broadcast," I insisted. "The truth it contained. You have seen the evidence of the Lazarus Protocol. You have seen how the High Command violated our most sacred principles, how they were willing to commit genocide." Vraxon was silent for several seconds. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted to a more private register, the tone Zorthans used for communication between equals rather than official pronouncements. 3 battle groups have declared independence from Central Command," he said quietly. "The capital is in chaos. The Archon himself has gone into seclusion. Your actions have fractured the Collective." "Vraxon, the Collective was already fractured," I replied. "Between those who would preserve our honor and those who would sacrifice it for power, which side do you stand on, old friend?" Another long pause. Behind Vraxon I could see his bridge officers watching intently, their postures revealing the tension aboard the vessel. "I am a soldier of the Collective," he said finally. "As are you. Our duty is to protect our people." "Yes," I agreed. "Our people, not our government, not our current leaders. Our people." The distinction was crucial in Zothan philosophy, a subtlety that Sophia had helped me articulate during our months of planning. The current regime had deliberately blurred the line between loyalty to the species and loyalty to the leadership, using our strong communal instincts against us. Rizik's eye stalks quivered slightly, a gesture of profound uncertainty. "What would you have me do? Fire on my own fleet? Become a traitor like you?" "I would have you think," I said simply, "about what you have seen, about what you know to be true, about what best serves our people in the long term." The communication fell silent again, but the channel remained open. Vraxon appeared to be conferring with his senior officers, their conversation just out of audio range. Beside me, Sophia murmured, "You are reaching him." "Perhaps," I allowed. "But will it be enough?" We had our answer moments later when Vraxon returned his attention to the screen. "Commander Vraxon, I cannot and will not support your actions," he declared formally. Then, in a slightly different tone, "However, my sensors appear to be experiencing a localized malfunction that will prevent accurate targeting for approximately 12 minutes. I suggest you make use of this technical difficulty." He was offering us a window, a chance to reach the Defiance while his ships conveniently failed to engage us. "Understood, Fleet Commander," I acknowledged, careful to maintain the formal tone while conveying my gratitude with subtle mandible movements that Vraxon would recognize.
"We will
address our technical issues as well. The communication terminated and I turned to find Sophia already in motion, relaying instructions to the pilot. Full thrust toward the Defiance, she ordered. We have a 12-minute window before those cruisers mysteriously regain their targeting capabilities. Rivera looked skeptical. Can we trust him? No, I admitted, but we have little choice. The dropship accelerated toward the embattled Defiance, which was currently engaged with two smaller Zorthan vessels, destroyers that had apparently been deployed separately from Rezix's battle group. As we approached, we could see the human vessel was holding its own, its advanced targeting systems giving it a significant advantage despite being outnumbered. The other extraction teams? I asked Sophia. Already aboard, according to the Defiance's last transmission, she replied, eyes fixed on the tactical display, including the special package. My family, so close now. 6 minutes to intercept, the pilot announced. Defiance is signaling they will create a coverage corridor for our final approach. True to their word, the human warship suddenly intensified its fire against the Zorthan destroyers, forcing them to adjust position and creating a relatively safe approach vector for our smaller craft. Behind us, Rezix's cruisers maintained their position, making no move to engage despite having clear firing solutions. They are honoring the agreement, Rivera noted with surprise. For now, Sophia cautioned. But we shouldn't test their patience. The final approach was tense but ultimately successful. The dropship slipped into the Defiance's hangar bay just as one of the Zorthan destroyers began to maneuver back into an intercept position. The moment we were secure, the human vessel executed a rapid acceleration, breaking contact with its pursuers and setting course for the system's jump point. As the hangar repressurized, I felt the familiar vibration of the Defiance's advanced engines pushing to maximum output. We were away, at least for the moment. The boarding ramp lowered, and we were greeted by Captain Hayes herself, a tall, severe-looking human female with short gray hair and the unmistakable bearing of a career military officer. Cutting it close, Jordan, she remarked as Sophia descended the ramp. The package is secure in Medical Bay 3. Casualties? Sophia asked. Minimal. 2 wounded during the extraction, neither critical. Your intelligence was solid. As usual. While they exchanged information, I scanned the hangar anxiously, looking for any sign of the special package team. Were my mate and offspring truly aboard, or had that been merely a tactical deception to ensure my cooperation? Commander, I turned to find Sophia gesturing for me to follow her. They are waiting, heart pounding with both primary and secondary chambers. I followed her through the Defiance's corridors toward the medical section. Around us, human crew members moved with the focused efficiency of a vessel at combat readiness, barely sparing us a glance despite the unusual sight of Zorthan warriors aboard their ship. The broadcast is continuing to spread, Sophia informed me as we walked. Intelligence reports indicate at least 60% of the collective has now viewed the complete package. Reactions are varied. That was expected, I replied, barely able to focus on the strategic implications when my family might be mere moments away. The initial shock will give way to anger, then resolution as they process the information. Your psychological models were accurate, she nodded. Protest demonstrations have erupted in 23 major population centers. Military units are increasingly refusing orders to suppress them. We reached the medical bay and Sophia paused outside the door. They are unharmed, she assured me, but prepared for some emotional distress. The extraction was not gentle. Before I could respond, the door slid open to reveal a scene that stopped my respiratory functions momentarily. There, seated on examination platforms designed for human physiology but adjusted for Zorthan comfort, were my mate Vela and our 2 offspring, Trex and Kira. They appeared physically unharmed but clearly exhausted, their scales dull with stress and their eye movements erratic, signs of severe emotional strain in our species. Vraxon? Vela's voice was uncertain, as if she couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. It's me, I confirmed, moving forward slowly, conscious of the human medical staff watching the reunion with poorly concealed curiosity. You are safe now. Kira, our youngest, broke protocol first, leaping from the platform to collide with my midsection in what humans would recognize as an embrace. Trex followed more hesitantly, his adolescent dignity warring with his relief. Vela remained seated, her expression complex. Joy mingled with something that might have been reproach. "You have changed," she observed, her sensory appendages quivering as she assessed me. "Yes," I admitted. "I have." Behind me I was vaguely aware of Sophia quietly directing the medical staff to give us privacy. The door closed, leaving just my family, myself and Sophia in the room. "This is Dr. Jordan," I explained, gesturing to the human. "She is responsible for your rescue." Vela's attention shifted to Sophia, her gaze intensely analytical. "You are not military," she stated after a moment's observation. "No," Sophia confirmed, "though I work with them occasionally." "She is difficult to categorize," I added, which earned a small curve of the lips from Sophia. "She is the reason you betrayed your oath to the collective," Vela said, her tone neutral but her pheromones betraying her conflicted emotions. "I kept my oath to protect our people," I corrected gently. "The current leadership betrayed that oath when they developed biological weapons for genocide." Vela looked away, her mandibles clicking softly, a gesture of deep thought. "They told us you had been corrupted by human propaganda, that you were helping them prepare an invasion, and yet you didn't believe them," I observed. "I know you," she replied simply. "Whatever else had changed, I knew you would not betray our people, so there had to be another explanation." Kira, still clinging to my midsection, looked up at me with innocent curiosity. "Father, are we traitors now too?" The question struck me like a physical blow. How does one explain complex moral and political nuances to a child who has only ever known the certainties of an authoritarian system? To my surprise, it was Sophia who answered. "No, little one," she said, crouching to Kira's eye level. "Your father is a patriot, someone who loves his people so much that he's willing to risk everything to protect them from bad decisions made by their leaders." Kira considered this carefully, her eye stalks swiveling between Sophia and myself. "But the Archon says the humans want to destroy us, that they are monsters who can't be trusted." "Do I look like a monster to you?" Sophia asked gently. "You look small," Kira decided after serious consideration, "and soft, but father says you are dangerous." That earned a genuine smile from Sophia. "Your father is very perceptive." Trex, who had remained silent until now, suddenly spoke. "They said you killed thousands of our warriors, that you are a traitor to your blood and heritage. But they also kept us prisoner and threatened us. Why should we believe anything either side says?" His question revealed a maturity beyond his years, a skepticism born of recent trauma, but essential for navigating the complex reality we now inhabited. "You shouldn't," I told him honestly. "You should examine the evidence yourself and reach your own conclusions." "That's what I had to do." "And what evidence convinced you?" he pressed. I looked to Sophia, who nodded slightly. "Permission to reveal what I had seen." "The Lazarus Protocol," I said quietly. "A biological weapon designed to kill humans in the most horrific way imaginable, tested on prisoners, prepared for deployment against civilian populations. I saw the footage, the documentation, the orders signed by the High Command themselves." Vela's respiratory rate increased, a sign of distress in our species. "This can't be true. The collective would never." "The collective wouldn't," I agreed, "but the current leadership is not the collective. They have perverted our principles, our honor, our very identity as a species." Sophia, sensing the conversation was becoming too intense for the younger offspring, intervened smoothly. "Perhaps the children would like to rest. There are quarters prepared for all of you, with appropriate environmental adjustments." Vela nodded gratefully. "Yes, that would be helpful." After arranging for a medical technician to escort the children to our assigned quarters, Vela, Sophia, and I remained in the medical bay to continue our conversation. "How bad is it truly?" Vela asked once we were alone. "The situation with the collective. Civil conflict has begun," I admitted. "Military units choosing sides, civilian protests, the regime responding with force in some regions, capitulation in others. It will get worse before it improves." "And the humans? What is their role in this?" Sophia answered before I could. "Officially, the Earth Alliance is monitoring the situation with concern for regional stability. Unofficially, We are providing support to factions that demonstrate commitment to peaceful coexistence. Factions like my mate, Vela observed shrewdly. Commander Vraxon has become an important voice for reform, Sophia acknowledged. His testimony was instrumental in exposing the regime's violations of interstellar law. Vela's attention remained fixed on Sophia, her analytical mind clearly working to understand this puzzling human who had somehow catalyzed such monumental changes. You are not just a scientist, she stated, nor are you military or diplomatic corps. What exactly are you, Dr. Jordan? Sophia's expression revealed nothing. I'm someone who believes the future doesn't have to repeat the mistakes of the past. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give at present. I intervened before the exchange could become more tense. Vela is a political analyst specializing in interspecies relations. I explained to Sophia. Before the current regime came to power, she was a senior advisor to the diplomatic conclave. Understanding dawned in Sophia's eyes. That's why they took you into custody so quickly after the broadcast began. You weren't just leverage against the commander, you are a potential asset in your own right. Vela's mandibles clicked in affirmation. I recognized the implications of Vraxon's testimony immediately. If even half of what he revealed is true, the entire foundation of our current foreign policy is based on fabrication. It's all true, Sophia assured her. And there's more that hasn't been made public yet. The implication hung in the air between us. More revelations, more upheaval, more suffering before any resolution could be achieved. A soft chime interrupted our conversation. Sophia's communication implant signaling an incoming message. She tilted her head slightly, listening to something only she could hear, then refocused on us with increased urgency. We need to move to the command center, she said. The situation is developing rapidly. What's happened? I demanded. The Archon has made a public statement denouncing the broadcast as human propaganda. He's ordered all loyal forces to apprehend dissenters by any means necessary. And he's activated something called the Sentinel Protocol. I felt my blood run cold. That's impossible. The Sentinel Protocol requires unanimous approval from the High Command. Apparently he got it, Sophia replied grimly. Or claims he did. Vela's expression revealed her alarm. If the Sentinel Protocol has been activated, this is no longer a political dispute. It's a purge. As we hurried through the corridors toward the command center, I explained to Sophia what we were facing. The Sentinel Protocol was designed as a last resort against external existential threats. It suspends all normal legal constraints on military forces and authorizes lethal action against any individual or group deemed hostile to the collective. Including civilians? She asked. Especially civilians, Vela answered. The protocol assumes that any resistance during an existential crisis represents either external infiltration or irredeemable contamination. In other words, I continued, the Archon has just declared that anyone who believes our broadcast is an enemy combatant who can be summarily executed. We reached the command center to find it in a state of controlled chaos. Captain Hayes stood at the central tactical station, surrounded by senior officers all focused intently on the multiple data feeds displayed around them. Jordan? Hayes acknowledged our arrival without looking up. Your timing is impeccable. Status? Sophia asked, moving to join her at the tactical display. The situation has deteriorated rapidly, Hayes reported. Military units loyal to the Archon have begun operations against population centers where protests emerged. Civilian casualties are significant. The display showed multiple engagement zones across Zarthan space, planets, orbital habitats, and space stations all experiencing varying levels of conflict. In some regions, military forces appeared to be fighting each other, indicating splits in the chain of command. The Third Fleet? I asked, searching the display for any sign of Admiral Kex's forces. Engaged with loyalist elements near the Kaldor system, Hayes confirmed. They are holding their own for now, but they are outnumbered. Sophia studied the tactical situation with the focused intensity I had come to recognize as her strategic analysis mode. The Archon is overreaching, she observed after a moment, committing too many forces to too many fronts simultaneously. He's creating openings. Openings for what? Hayes asked. For a decisive strike at the center, Sophia replied. If we can reach the capital and secure evidence from the Central Archives, we can prove beyond any doubt that the High Command authorized the Lazarus Protocol. Not even the most loyal forces could ignore that. Hayes looked skeptical. You are proposing a direct assault on the most heavily defended system in Zorthan space. With what exactly? Not an assault, Sophia corrected. An infiltration. Small team, precise objective, minimal footprint. Suicide mission, Hayes countered. High risk, Sophia acknowledged. But potentially war-ending. I found myself nodding in agreement before I had consciously processed the implications. She's right. The Archon's authority rests on the perception of unanimous support from the High Command. If we can prove that consensus was manufactured or coerced regarding the Lazarus Protocol, his invocation of the Sentinel Protocol becomes illegitimate. And who exactly would undertake this infiltration? Hayes demanded. Sophia met my eyes briefly before answering. Commander Vraxon and I would lead a small team. 6 operators, maximum. Veli immediately objected. Absolutely not. Vraxon has just been reunited with his family. You cannot ask him to. I'm not asking, Sophia interrupted gently. He's already decided. She was right, of course. Despite the joy of reunion, despite the relief of knowing my family was safe, I had recognized the strategic necessity the moment she suggested it. The conflict tearing apart my society could only end one way now, with the complete delegitimization of the current regime. Anything less would result in prolonged civil war and millions of deaths. I have to go, I told Villa softly. This may be the only chance to end this quickly. Her eye stalks quivered with emotion, but she was too much the political analyst to deny the logic. I understand, she said finally, but I don't have to approve. Captain Hayes, meanwhile, had shifted from skepticism to tactical planning. Assuming I authorize this insanity, which I haven't yet, how exactly would you infiltrate the most heavily guarded political complex in the collective? Sophia's not-quite smile appeared. With legitimate credentials, of course. All eyes turned to her in confusion. Explain, Hayes demanded. The Archon has recalled all diplomatic personnel from foreign posts, Sophia elaborated, including those stationed in human space. We have a Zorthan diplomatic shuttle currently docked at Jupiter Station. With the proper transponder codes and identification, it could approach the capital without raising immediate alarms. The audacity of the plan was breathtaking. Using a legitimate Zorthan vessel to infiltrate the heart of their government during an interspecies conflict. It was either brilliant or suicidal. And how exactly would you obtain the proper codes and identification? Hayes asked, though her tone suggested she already suspected the answer. I already have them, Sophia replied simply. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. How long had Sophia been planning for this contingency? What other resources and intelligence had she accumulated without revealing? Of course you do, Hayes muttered, shaking her head in what appeared to be a mixture of exasperation and admiration. One day, Jordan, you are going to explain to me exactly who you really work for. One day, Sophia agreed non-committally. But right now we have a more pressing concern. The window for this operation is closing rapidly. Once the Archon consolidates his forces, the approach vectors to the capital will be much more heavily monitored.
Hayes considered for a long moment.
Then nodded decisively. Take what you need, but I want a comprehensive operational plan before you leave this ship and direct communication protocols established. If this goes sideways, I won't have the resources for an extraction. Understood, Sophia acknowledged. We will depart within 6 hours. As the command staff dispersed to prepare for various contingencies, Sophia pulled me aside. You don't have to do this, Commander. I can find another Zorthan officer to accompany me. No, you can't, I replied simply. None would have my motivation or credibility. This has to be me. She studied my face with that unnerving perceptiveness. Your family has just been rescued from one dangerous situation. Are you certain you want to leave them again so soon? I'm doing this for them, I said, for all our families. The longer this conflict continues, the more lives will be lost. If there's even a chance we can end it quickly. There is, she assured me, but the risk is substantial. I'm aware, I nodded. Now tell me what you are not telling Captain Hayes. What's the real plan? Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes confirmed my suspicion. The infiltration is real, she said quietly. The target is real, but there's another element Hayes doesn't need to know about. Which is, we have assets inside the capital already. People who have been positioned for months, waiting for this moment. The revelation wasn't entirely surprising. Sophia's level of intelligence about Zorthan internal affairs had always suggested deep penetration of our society, but the scale and foresight implied by her statement was staggering. Who are these assets? I asked. It's better if you don't know yet, she replied. Compartmentalization protects everyone. What you need to understand is that we won't be going in blind or alone. I should have been reassured, but something in her tone raised my concerns rather than alleviating them. These assets, are they human? She hesitated before answering. Not all of them. The implications were disturbing. Non-human assets placed within the Zorthan capital months in advance. That suggested either an extraordinary level of infiltration by alien operatives or, more troublingly, Zorthan collaborators who had been working with Sophia long before my own defection. How long have you been planning this, Jordan? I asked directly. The specific operation. Since we learned about the Lazarus protocol, she answered. The strategic positioning of assets within the collective, much longer. How much longer? She met my gaze steadily. The first assets were placed approximately 3 years ago, shortly after intelligence indicated the collective was shifting toward a more aggressive posture in the region. 3 years before the first human Zorthan skirmishes. Before the Lazarus protocol development had even begun. Sophia, or whoever she truly represented, had been preparing for this conflict long before it erupted into open hostilities. You anticipated all of this. I realized aloud, the rising tensions, the biological weapons development, the civil fracturing of the collective. Not the specifics, she corrected, but the general trajectory. Yes, historical patterns suggested a high probability of conflict. We simply prepared accordingly. We, I repeated. And who exactly is we, Dr. Jordan? Because I'm increasingly certain it's not the Earth Alliance, at least not officially. For the first time in our acquaintance, Sophia appeared genuinely uncomfortable with my questioning. This isn't the time or place for that conversation, Commander. We have an operation to plan. She was right, of course. The strategic situation demanded our immediate attention. Yet I couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that I was still missing crucial information about my human ally. Information that might fundamentally change how I viewed our partnership. Nevertheless, I followed her from the command center toward the tactical planning room where we would develop the details of our infiltration mission. The fate of my species might well depend on its success, regardless of who Sophia Jordan truly served. As we walked, I found myself studying her profile once again, searching for clues to the enigma she presented. She had never claimed to be just a xenoanthropologist, never pretended her interest in my species was purely academic. Yet the scope of her involvement in galactic affairs seemed far beyond what any individual, even an exceptionally capable one, should be able to orchestrate. You are staring, Commander, she observed without looking at me. I'm evaluating, I corrected. And your conclusion? I considered my words carefully. That I still trust you, despite not fully understanding you. That may be unwise. She finally turned to meet my gaze, her expression softening slightly. It's not unwise. I have never lied to you, Vraxon. Omitted information. Yes. Compartmentalized, certainly. But never lied. Is that distinction meaningful when the outcome is the same? I follow your guidance without complete understanding of the context. The distinction is crucial, she insisted. Because it means when I tell you something is true, you can rely on it absolutely. I told you I would rescue your family, and I did. I told you the broadcast would fracture the collective, and it has. I'm telling you now that this mission can succeed despite the risks. There was such conviction in her voice that I found myself believing her, despite my lingering doubts. Whatever else Sophia Jordan might be, she was not one who made promises lightly. Very well, I conceded. But when this is over, assuming we survive, I expect a more complete explanation. If we succeed, she agreed, you will have earned that much. The tactical planning consumed the next 4 hours. Sophia and I worked with Rivera and two of his most experienced operators to develop a comprehensive infiltration plan. Grell would also accompany us, along with one other Zorthan warrior who had previously served in the capital's security forces and knew the physical layout intimately. The plan itself was elegantly simple in concept, though complex in execution. We would approach the capital in the diplomatic shuttle using legitimate credentials and transponder codes. Once past the outer security perimeter, we would transition to a more covert approach, utilizing service corridors and maintenance shafts to reach the central archive. There we would access and transmit the most damning evidence of the High Command's complicity in the Lazarus Protocol. The critical weakness in the plan is time, Sophia observed as we reviewed the final details. From the moment we access the archive, security will begin to respond. We will have minutes at most before the entire complex locks down. Which is why we need the distraction, Rivera added, indicating a section of the plan I had initially questioned. Something big enough to draw attention but not so catastrophic as to trigger a full security alert before we reach the objective. And you are certain your assets can provide this distraction? I asked Sophia. Absolutely, she confirmed. They are already in position, awaiting our signal. Rivera, I noticed, seemed less surprised by the reference to these mysterious assets than I would have expected. Perhaps he knew more about Sophia's true role than he revealed. Once we have the evidence and transmit it, extraction becomes the primary concern, Sophia continued. The diplomatic shuttle will be compromised by then, so we will need an alternative. The maintenance tunnels connect to the subsurface transport network, our Zorthan security expert noted. If we can reach that, we could potentially exit the complex via the civilian infrastructure. To what end? I asked. The entire planet will be looking for us. Not the entire planet, Sophia corrected. By that point, the transmission will have reached most of the population. Chaos will be our ally. Security forces will be overwhelmed dealing with the public reaction. Her confidence was either inspiring or terrifying, depending on one's perspective. She was counting on my people responding predictably to the revelation of their leader's deception, rising up in sufficient numbers to create the disorder we would need for our escape. And if they don't, I pressed, if the public reaction is less dramatic than you anticipate, then we implement contingency Omega, she replied, referring to a section of the plan that had been oddly vague in our discussions. But that won't be necessary. Your people value truth and honor, Commander. When they see incontrovertible evidence that their leadership has betrayed those principles, they will respond accordingly. Her faith in Zorthan cultural values was surprising, and not entirely misplaced. But would it be enough to ensure our survival? The planning session concluded with final assignments and equipment specifications. We would depart the Defiance within the hour, transferring to a faster courier vessel that would rendezvous with the diplomatic shuttle at Jupiter Station. Before leaving the tactical room, I requested a few minutes to speak with my family. Sophia agreed immediately, instructing Rivera to begin equipment preparation while she finalized details with Captain Hayes. I found Vela and our offspring in the quarters assigned to them, a standard human habitat module, hastily modified with environmental adjustments for Zorthan comfort. The children were resting, their ordeal having exhausted them both physically and emotionally. Vela was awake, reviewing information on a datapad provided by the ship's cultural liaison officer. You are leaving, she said as I entered. Not a question, but a statement of fact. Yes, I confirmed. Within the hour. She set aside the datapad and rose to face me directly. To the capital. On a mission with minimal chance of success or survival. The chance is not minimal, I corrected. It is simply uncertain. Don't equivocate, she chided. Not with me. Not now. I moved closer, initiating the subtle pheromone exchange that served as intimate communication between mated Zorthans. I do this for them, I said softly, gesturing toward our sleeping offspring. For their future. They need a living father more than they need a dead hero, she countered, but without real conviction. Vela had always understood duty, even when she disagreed with its implementation. If this succeeds, it could end the conflict before it consumes our entire society, I explained. Millions of lives saved, our culture preserved rather than shattered by prolonged civil war. And you trust this human to achieve this? This Sophia Jordan who is clearly not what she claims to be. I considered the question seriously. I trust her capabilities and her commitment to ending this conflict. As for who or what she truly is, that remains unclear. But her actions have consistently aligned with her stated objectives. Villa studied me with the penetrating gaze that had made her such an effective political analyst. She's changed you, she observed. Not just your beliefs or allegiances. Something deeper. The experience of the past months has changed me, I acknowledged. Working alongside humans, witnessing both their brutality and their compassion, it forces one to reconsider fundamental assumptions. And your conclusion? That species is less determinative of character than culture and choice, I said simply. The humans are not the monolithic threat our propaganda portrayed. Neither are we the enlightened collective our own mythology claimed. Vil absorbed this in silence, her eye stalks quivering slightly as she processed the implications. Finally she moved closer, initiating the contact ritual that signified acceptance without necessarily indicating agreement. "Return to us," she said, the traditional Zorthan farewell between mates. "The circle remains incomplete in your absence." "I will complete it," I promised. Though we both knew such promises in wartime were aspirational at best. We remained together in silence for several minutes, communicating through pheromones and subtle touches in the way of our species. Then, reluctantly, I withdrew. The mission wouldn't wait, and every moment of delay increased the risk. As I turned to leave, Vela spoke once more. "Soften this human, Jordan. Be cautious in your trust. Not because she is human, but because she is something else entirely. I sense it. Something ancient moves behind those eyes." Her warning unsettled me more than I cared to admit. Mila had always possessed an intuitive understanding of others that transcended conventional analysis. If she sensed something unusual about Sophia, it warranted serious consideration. "I will be vigilant," I promised. With a final look at my sleeping offspring, I departed to prepare for what might well be the most dangerous mission of my life, a covert operation into the heart of the regime that had condemned me, led by a human whose true nature and allegiance remained a disturbing mystery. Yet despite the uncertainties, one thing had become abundantly clear in the chaos of recent events. Sophia Jordan never aimed to lead, but somehow soldiers from multiple species now followed in her footsteps, including me. The question that haunted me as I made my way to the deployment bay was simple but profound. Where exactly were those footsteps leading us? The diplomatic shuttle approached the Zorthan capital with deceptive serenity, its transponder broadcasting legitimate credentials that identified it as carrying personnel recalled from foreign assignments. From the exterior, nothing suggested this vessel contained what might be the most dangerous infiltration team ever assembled. I stood behind the pilot station, watching as the sprawling metropolis came into view. Trazkalan, the sacred city, ancestral seat of Zarthan governance for 12 centuries. Its gleaming spires and massive governmental complexes dominated the central plateau, surrounded by concentric rings of increasingly dense habitation that housed over 30 million of my species. "Beautiful," Sophia murmured, standing beside me. "I have studied the architectural principles, but seeing it firsthand, it was designed to inspire awe," I explained, "to remind citizens of the collective's grandeur and permanence." "Soon to be neither grand nor permanent," Rel remarked from his position at the communications array. "Incoming transmission from orbital control. They are requesting confirmation codes and passenger manifest." Sophia nodded to him. "Proceed as planned." Rel transmitted the prepared response, a data package containing not just the requested information but a subtly embedded algorithm designed to create a minor processing delay in the receiving systems. Nothing that would trigger security alerts, but enough to prevent deeper scrutiny of our credentials. "Response received," he reported moments later. "We are cleared for approach vector 7 Gamma to the diplomatic reception complex." "Right on schedule," Sophia noted, consulting her chronometer. "Our window begins in 22 minutes. The shuttle continued its descent, following the assigned flight path with perfect precision. Through the viewports I could see increased military presence throughout the city. Security checkpoints, armed patrols, atmospheric interceptors circling at regular intervals. The Sentinel protocol had clearly transformed the capital into a militarized zone. Significant force deployment, Major Rivera observed from the tactical station. They are preparing for something big. Suppression operations, I concluded grimly. The Archon is anticipating widespread civil unrest once the initial shock of the protocol wears off. Which works to our advantage, Sophia pointed out. Forces deployed for population control aren't positioned for internal security. The shuttle docked at the designated reception bay with practiced efficiency. As the systems cycled down, our team made final preparations, checking equipment, confirming communications, reviewing the infiltration route one last time. Remember, Sophia addressed us collectively, from this point forward we are operating under strict time constraints. The diplomatic credentials will get us through initial processing, but won't withstand extended scrutiny. Once inside the main complex, we have 40 minutes to reach the central archives. Rivera nodded to his two operators. Chang, Alvarez. You are on overwatch. Standard diplomatic security posture until we reach checkpoint 3. After that, full tactical mode. They acknowledged the order with professional restraint. These weren't soldiers who needed elaborate instructions. Both had demonstrated remarkable adaptability during our joint training sessions, quickly learning to coordinate with Zorthan warriors despite our physiological and tactical differences. Grell, you and Vraxon maintain the diplomatic cover story if we are challenged, I instructed my warriors. Official story is inspection of archives for classified materials related to human diplomatic intercepts. Understood, Commander, Grell confirmed, adjusting his formal attire, a convincing approximation of diplomatic corps regalia that would pass casual inspection. Sophia performed a final check of her concealed equipment. Unlike the rest of us, she wore no official uniform or diplomatic attire. Her clothing was nondescript civilian wear, chosen to render her as forgettable as possible, the kind of human aid or translator that occasionally accompanied diplomatic missions. Yet beneath that unremarkable exterior she carried more specialized infiltration technology than the rest of us combined. Ready? She asked, meeting each of our eyes in turn. The affirmative responses were subdued but confident. We had trained for this, prepared for every contingency we could anticipate. Now it was time to execute. The airlock cycled open, revealing a reception area staffed by bored-looking Zorthan security personnel. Their posture straightened slightly at the sight of a mixed-species delegation, but the diplomatic credentials forestalled any immediate suspicion. Welcome back to Trazkalin. The senior officer greeted us with formal correctness. Please proceed to Processing Station 7 for verification and decontamination. We followed the designated path, maintaining the precise formation of a legitimate diplomatic party, Rel and Vraxon leading as official representatives, Rivera and his operators flanking as security, Sophia and I following as support staff. It was a configuration seen countless times in diplomatic facilities across the galaxy, so familiar as to be essentially invisible. The processing went smoothly, our carefully prepared credentials passing the initial verification without issue. The human members of our team received slightly more scrutiny, but nothing beyond standard procedure for non-Zorthan visitors during heightened security. Diplomatic clearance confirmed. The processing officer announced finally, "You are authorized for Central Administrative Complex access, Level 3 and below. Please note that due to current security protocols, some areas may be restricted without additional verification." Understood, Grell responded with the perfect intonation of a minor diplomatic functionary. Slightly officious, mildly put upon, entirely forgettable. We proceeded from the reception area into the main diplomatic transit hub, a vast, ornate space designed to impress foreign visitors with Zorthan architectural prowess. Under normal circumstances it would be bustling with activity. Today it was eerily quiet, with only scattered personnel moving purposefully between assignments. First checkpoint cleared, Rivera murmured into our secure communication system. Proceeding to transit platform. We boarded the designated transport, a maglev capsule that would carry us from the diplomatic reception area to the central administrative complex. As the doors closed and the capsule accelerated into the underground tunnel system, Sophia activated a compact device that would temporarily blind any surveillance within our compartment. 37 minutes remaining in our window, she announced. First phase complete. Prepare for transition. The transition involved rapid changes from our diplomatic personas to our infiltration configuration. Formal attire was discarded, revealing tactical gear beneath. Concealed weapons were retrieved from hidden compartments in our luggage. Communication systems were recalibrated from diplomatic frequencies to our secure network. Status report from our assets, I asked as I secured my plasma sidearm. Sophia checked her specialized communication device. All in position. Distraction package ready for deployment on our signal. The capsule began decelerating as it approached the Central Administrative Complex station. By the time the doors opened, we had transformed from an unremarkable diplomatic party to a fully equipped infiltration team. 20 seconds to arrival, Rivera warned. Masks on. We applied specialized filtration masks, protection against both identification systems and any defensive chemical agents we might encounter. The human versions were slim and form-fitting. The Zorthan variants were more complex, accommodating our different respiratory structure. The capsule doors opened to reveal a security checkpoint more substantial than the previous ones. 4 armed guards and an automated scanning array. This was where our plan diverged from conventional approach. Now, Sophia said quietly. Simultaneously, several things happened. The lights throughout the station flickered momentarily, the result of a precisely calibrated power fluctuation triggered by one of Sophia's mysterious assets. In that brief moment of darkness, Rivera deployed a specialized electronic warfare device that overwhelmed the scanning array with false positives, and I activated the biorhythm disruptor Sophia had provided, a device that emitted frequencies specifically calibrated to induce momentary disorientation in Zorthan neurological systems. The guards staggered slightly, their sensory organs struggling to compensate for the disruption. In that window of vulnerability, we moved with practiced coordination. Rivera and his operators subdued 2 guards each with non-lethal precision. Rel and Vraxon secured the checkpoint control systems. Sophia and I advanced to the access corridor beyond. Checkpoint neutralized. Rivera reported seconds later. No alarms triggered. 32 minutes remaining, Sophia noted. We are ahead of schedule. We proceeded deeper into the administrative complex, following a predetermined route that utilized service corridors and maintenance accessways rather than main thoroughfares. Sophia consulted her navigation device regularly, making minor adjustments to our path based on real-time security deployments being tracked by her assets. Approaching Junction 7 Delta, she announced after several minutes of swift, silent progress. Potential patrol ahead. Rivera signaled his operators to advance position, their specialized sensors probing the corridor intersection ahead. After a moment, Alvarez signaled confirmation. A security patrol of 3 guards was indeed approaching. Options? I asked quietly. Avoidance preferred, Sophia replied. Alternative route through Maintenance Shaft 3. Grell located the access panel and quickly bypassed its security, revealing a narrow vertical shaft used for environmental system maintenance. One by one, we entered the shaft and began climbing, sealing the access panel behind us just as the patrol rounded the corner. The maintenance shaft was cramped and uncomfortable, particularly for Zorthan physiology, but it provided an efficient bypass of 2 security zones we would otherwise have needed to navigate. We emerged 3 levels below our entry point, in a seldom-used storage area. 26 minutes remaining, Sophia updated as we regrouped. Central Archives 2 sections east. We continued our advance, encountering minimal resistance. The few administrative personnel we did encounter were easily avoided, or in 2 cases briefly incapacitated with targeted neural disruptors. The relative ease of our progress was both encouraging and concerning. Either our intelligence was exceptionally accurate, or we were being allowed to proceed for reasons unknown. This feels too simple, Rel voiced my unspoken concern as we approached the outer security perimeter of the Central Archives. The Sentinel Protocol has diverted most security resources to external threat response, Sophia explained. Internal security is operating on minimum staffing. That was the logical explanation, yet something continued to trouble me. The Archon was many things, but careless about his own security was not among them. We reached the final approach to the Central Archives, a heavily secured corridor with multiple verification systems and live guards. This was the most critical juncture of our infiltration. the point where our presence could no longer be concealed by stealth alone. Time for the distraction, Sophia decided, activating her communication device. She transmitted a simple coded signal, then nodded to us. 30 seconds. Precisely half a minute later, distant alarms began blaring throughout the complex. Emergency lighting activated, bathing the corridors in pulsing red illumination. Announcement systems broadcast security alerts regarding an incident in the Eastern Administrative Sector, exactly opposite our position. "What did your assets do?" I asked as we watched the archive guards respond to the emergency protocols, several of them rushing toward the reported incident. "Created a convincing simulation of a reactor coolant breach," she replied. "Non-lethal but requiring immediate security response. It will hold their attention for approximately 7 minutes. With the security presence reduced, we advanced on the archive entrance. The remaining guards were dispatched efficiently with targeted stun weapons. Rivera's operators took up defensive positions while Sophia, Grell, and I approached the main access terminal. 15 minutes remaining in our window, Sophia noted. We need to work quickly. The central archives utilized a triple verification security system: biometric, knowledge-based, and physical key. Under normal circumstances, it would be virtually impenetrable. But these were not normal circumstances. Grell applied a synthetic biofilm to the scanner that replicated the patterns of an authorized user, a senior archivist, whose credentials had been compromised months earlier by one of Sophia's assets. I entered the knowledge verification sequence, a complex pattern of historical references that changed according to a predetermined algorithm. And Sophia provided the final element, a physical authentication device that had been acquired through means she had never fully explained. The massive security doors hissed open, revealing the central archives of the Zorthan Collective, the most comprehensive repository of governmental records in our civilization. Tier upon tier of data storage systems stretched in all directions, containing everything from mundane administrative records to the most closely guarded secrets of the regime. "We need Level 7, Section 23. I directed, moving purposefully toward the designated area. "Military command authorization records for the past 5 years. Sophia followed closely, her specialized scanning device already searching for the specific data signatures we needed. "The Lazarus protocol documentation will be isolated from standard record systems," she warned, "probably utilizing quantum encryption protocols." "Which is why we brought this," I replied, producing a decryption module provided by sympathetic elements within Zorthan intelligence services. It can't break the encryption, but it can identify which systems contain isolated data clusters. We reached Section 23 and began our search, methodically scanning each data node for the telltale signatures of segregated information. Behind us, Grell monitored the security systems, ready to warn of any approaching response teams. 8 minutes remaining, he reported tensely. "The distraction will be contained soon." "I have got something," Sophia announced suddenly, her scanner focusing on a particular data node that appeared outwardly identical to those surrounding it. Isolated data cluster with military command encryption markers. Access timestamp matches the period when the Lazarus protocol was authorized. I connected the decryption module, watching as it attempted to establish a pathway into the secured data. "This will take approximately 90 seconds, I informed them. "Maintain perimeter security." The seconds crawled by with excruciating slowness, each moment increasing the risk of discovery. Finally, the module signaled completion. It had created a temporary access route into the secured data. "Downloading now," Sophia confirmed, connecting her specialized data extraction device. Estimated completion time 67 seconds. "Commander," Grell called urgently from his position. "Security response teams are regrouping. They have contained the distraction and are beginning systematic sweep patterns." "Time estimate until they reach our position?" I asked. 4 minutes, possibly less." Sophia's device continued its extraction, the progress indicator advancing with maddening deliberation. 50% complete, she reported. "We are still within our window, but it's narrowing." I moved to join Grell at the security monitoring station, assessing the developing situation. The response teams were indeed reorganizing, but their patterns suggested standard security protocols rather than specific knowledge of our presence. They don't know we are here yet, I observed. They are conducting general sweeps following the distraction event. For now, Grell agreed. But once they check the archive entrance and find the incapacitated guards, download complete, Sophia announced, disconnecting her device. I have the complete Lazarus protocol authorization chain, including direct commands from the Archon and verification signatures from all High Command members. Transmit it, I ordered, already moving toward the exit. Use the quantum entanglement channel to bypass their communication blackout. Sophia activated the transmission sequence, sending the extracted data directly to the Defiance via the specialized quantum entanglement device Rivera carried. Unlike conventional communications, this transmission couldn't be detected or blocked by Zarfan's security systems. Transmission confirmed, she reported seconds later. The Defiance has received the package and is initiating broadcast distribution through our network. A profound sense of accomplishment washed over me. We had done it. The evidence was now beyond the regime's ability to suppress. Within hours, perhaps minutes, the entire collective would know the truth about their leadership's betrayal of our most sacred principles. Now we extract, Rivera reminded us. His operators already moving to secure our exit route. 4 minutes until security reaches this sector. We departed the archives, sealing the massive doors behind us. Our exit strategy was necessarily different from our entry. With the distraction contained and security alerts active, we couldn't risk the main corridors or transport systems. Maintenance level access point is 30 meters east, Sophia directed, consulting her navigation device. From there we can reach the subsurface transit network. We moved swiftly, encountering no resistance in the immediate vicinity of the archives. The success was almost unsettling, as if we were being permitted to proceed for reasons I couldn't discern. That unease proved prophetic as we approached the maintenance access point. Waiting there, arranged in perfect ambush formation, was a full squad of elite security forces. The Archon's personal guard unit, distinguished by their distinctive black armor and advanced weaponry. Trap, Rivera hissed, signaling his operators to defensive positions. Before we could retreat, additional forces appeared behind us, cutting off our escape route. We were surrounded, caught in a carefully orchestrated trap that suggested our presence had been anticipated. Commander Vraxon, the leader of the security forces, addressed me directly. By order of the Archon, you and your companions are to surrender immediately. Compliance will be rewarded with humane treatment. Resistance will result in immediate termination. I exchanged glances with Sophia, whose expression revealed nothing of her thoughts. We had contingency plans for discovery, but none that accounted for this level of preparedness by our opponents. Options, I asked quietly through our secure communications system. Limited, she admitted. But not zero. Contingency Omega is still viable. The mysterious Contingency Omega that had been so vaguely defined in our planning sessions, whatever it entailed, now seemed the moment for its implementation. Proceed, I authorized. Sophia made a subtle gesture with her left hand, activating some concealed device or sending a signal I couldn't detect. For several seconds nothing happened. The security forces maintained their positions, weapons trained on us with unwavering precision. Then abruptly, their commander's communication system activated. Even from our position, I could hear the urgency in the transmission he received. His posture stiffened, his attention momentarily diverted by whatever information was being conveyed. Perimeter teams to the Archon's residence immediately, he ordered his forces. Priority override Sentinel Alpha. 2/3 of the security forces immediately departed, moving with the focused urgency of troops responding to a direct threat to their ultimate authority figure. The remaining guards maintained their positions, still outnumbering us significantly but no longer presenting overwhelming force. What did you do? I asked Sophia, genuinely bewildered by this development. Called in our final asset, she replied cryptically. Now we move. Without waiting for further discussion, she activated another concealed device. The corridor lights extinguished instantly, plunging the area into darkness, broken only by the emergency illumination strips near the floor. In that moment of disorientation, Rivera and his operators launched a coordinated attack using advanced night vision systems. Concussive devices detonated, overwhelming Zorthan's sensory organs. Non-lethal but highly effective suppression fire created a momentary pathway through the security cordon. "Move now," Sophia ordered, already advancing through the opening with remarkable confidence despite the near darkness. We followed, engaging in close-quarters combat with the remaining guards. The fighting was brief but intense, professional soldiers on both sides utilizing their respective advantages. The humans' superior adaptability to changing conditions balanced against Zorthan physical strength and resilience. 30 seconds of controlled chaos later, we had broken through the security perimeter and reached the maintenance access point. Brel quickly bypassed the security, revealing a vertical shaft that would take us to the subsurface levels. "Go," Rivera urged as sounds of approaching reinforcements echoed from nearby corridors. One by one we descended the shaft, sealing the access panel behind us. The maintenance shaft extended downward for several hundred meters, terminating in a rarely used service corridor that connected to the civilian subsurface transit network. "Status report," I requested once we had regrouped in the relative safety of the service corridor. "Minor injuries only," Rivera reported after a quick assessment of his operators. Cheng took a glancing hit to her left arm, already treated with field dressing. "Our mission is complete," Sophia reminded us. "The evidence has been transmitted and is being distributed through our network. Extraction is now the priority." "What was contingency Omega?" I asked directly. "What drew away the security forces?" For the first time in our acquaintance, Sophia's professional composure showed signs of strain. A momentary hesitation before she answered. "A direct action operation against the Archon's personal residence, conducted by our most deeply embedded asset." "An assassination attempt?" I asked, alarmed by the implications. "No," she corrected firmly. "A targeted extraction of evidence physically stored in the Archon's private archives, evidence that will further confirm what we have already transmitted." The explanation was plausible but incomplete. Something in her delivery suggested there was more to this operation than she was revealing. "This asset," I pressed. "Who are they?" "Someone who has been positioned for a very long time," she replied. "Someone with unique access and capabilities."